What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tastes Like Music. Jason and Joe here. Today we are reviewing the self-titled debut album by Stone Roses. It's part of our classic album review series. These are voted on by our patrons over on Patreon. Check us out over there. Links in the video description. You can vote on which of these classic albums we'll review next. So yeah, Stone Roses, part of the, I guess, Madchester Baggy scenes. I've never fully been able to pinpoint that sound because it's always described as kind of like a blending of dance and psychedelia, and I don't hear dance music much at all in the Stone Roses. So it's kind of like a precursor, or the Stone Roses are at least, of the Britpop to come in the 90s. This record made my top five for 1989 when we did our original series of albums of the year, but it's the 80s. So I'll let you know what that means as this review goes along.
Well, it didn't make my top five. However, I Want to Be Adored did make my top one for the year, 1989 Song of the Year. And I am a big Brit pop lover, but we'll find out if that applies for the whole record here as we continue talking about the Stone Roses. Lots to talk about with this one. I feel like there's a lot of baggage with this album.
Well, it was produced by John Leckie, who has produced, I feel like, a million albums that we've talked about on this channel. He's a big time producer. Okay, let's get into it. Songwriting. I think there's a handful at least of just like absolute banger songs on this record. I Want to Be Adored, amazing. She Bangs the Drum, amazing. I Am the Resurrection is great. Made of Stone has a really great melody. And then there's another sort of subset of tunes that I think are cool. Like, there's not really any songs on the record that I don't like, but I think there's like a handful of them that my liking of them is not really attributed to the songwriting itself. Where, something like Waterfall has this like psychedelic swirling guitars and like this circular bass line. And it's really just kind of like this kaleidoscopic sort of mood piece. I don't really think of it as like a incredibly well written song necessarily, but it is cool and it works within the context of the record really well. Yeah, and then you've got like Don't Stop, which is even more like psychedelic, which has like the reverse effects all over it and stuff. So, yeah, so some amazing songs, some that I think are just like kind of cool jams would maybe be the best way to describe them. And then those two things kind of coexist throughout the record. Overall, I'd say the songwriting's good on it.
Yeah, I like the songwriting, and I can see where it came from. And then, if you know Britpop, you kind of see where it's going. But I think overall, the songwriting isn't as good as the rest of it. Like, it's not as good as its reputation, and I don't think it's as good as like it should be. I mean, something like I Want to Be Adored is really cool, big epic, and has that, interesting hissing like train like intro, that the throbbing bass that comes in, some twisting guitar lines, almost like a wall of sound. And then you get She Bangs the Drums, which is real sprightly. It's got that bass line that recalls like the Peter Gunn theme, the dun, 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 which is interesting. It always trips me up when I hear it. And you get something like Waterfall, which definitely has like the, birds and the Beatles kind of all over it. A song from My Sugar Spun Sisters, nice, bright, and bouncy. So it kind of goes back and forth between the two modes of kind of upbeat, sunny, not power pop, but just kind of like sunny 60s kind of stuff. And then the more psychedelic sound, Don't Stop is like a dead ringer for, Happiness is a Warm Gun with like the backwards tape effects and everything. And it's kind of faux Beatles psychedelia. But I don't know. Other than I Want to Be Adored, nothing really grips me that much. I don't think, the songwriting's on the level of, The Cure or the Smiths or a lot of their contemporaries. I hear, you know, besides like the Beatles stuff, I kind of get like some psychedelic furs and like Echo and the Bunnymen and like post-punk and kind of weaved in with the psychedelic and maybe a touch of Beatles and 60s birds, stuff like that. But I don't know. I like what everyone else did with this kind of songwriting style and sound better when Britpop came along. Like they're not like clever like Pulp. They don't have like the eye for vignettes like Blur. They're not like working class like Oasis. They don't have fire Manic Street Preachers. It just seems like the template for stuff that would come later that's more interesting to me. Like this is a good kind of bridge, the middle point between 60s British rock and the Britpop stuff. But I don't know. I just don't. I listen to these songs. I'm just like, okay, that's good. But like, I would never expect this to be like one of the quote greatest, albums of all time, unquote, just based on the songwriting at all.
I don't know that I would say, I think for me, I like it more than most Britpop that comes later because of this like overt 60s-ness of a lot of it, which kind of gets lost a little in the 90s. Production. I think the production is good in terms of like getting good performances and like the ideas that they're working with, but the actual sound of it I'm not super crazy about. It's very clearly a record that was made in the 80s. It has that 80s sound, whatever it is. It's a little cold, a little cavernous. The drums just a little over reverbed slightly. I think if they make this same record in 1994, just by virtue of like whatever gear they would be recording on or like having someone with, 90s ears mix it, I think it would come out a little better even. So the production is the one little thing about this record that I think is kind of a flaw.
I mean, I like this sound. It's the, burgeoning tendrils of Britpop, Baggy, Madchester, big cavernous, wall of guitars and throbbing bass, and you know, to me, it doesn't really. I guess if you really, like dial into it, I guess it sounds 80s, but to me, this sounds like the 90s are like knocking on the door as far as the way it sounds and is produced and everything. Like, is that you hear a lot of this style with Brit pop, especially Oasis. Like this sounds exactly like Oasis to me. Maybe more reverb on the drums than Oasis has, a little wetter mix, but still, like I listen to this, I'm like, wow, this is real close to Oasis.
The musicianship, I think, is a lot of times when we do this category of the review, it's like, yeah, it's satisfactory. It's good enough. I think they create a lot of cool atmospheres, like with guitars and stuff. None of the jangle is ever as gripping as when like Johnny Marr does it. So like the guitar's good and there's some cool effects, but none of the playing really blows me away. The bass line of She Bangs the Drum is incredible though. For me, that's the standout musical performance of the album. There's a really sweet guitar solo in Made of Stone too, that one.
Yeah, I think overall it's fine, but like, yeah, nothing really stands out other than the bass line, which is a Peter Gunn takeoff. It's got to be like the first 8 notes are the same. I like the guitar work and I Want to Be Adored. Like there's some cool stuff going on. Psychedelic leads in the background and stuff. But like I wouldn't say it really stands out for the 80s. Like this is, some really great players out there. You got Johnny Marr a couple of years ago just dominating the field. And this is more subtle, more moody. I guess it's supposed to kind of all blend in and blend together. Um, but other than some bass lines, nothing really stands out. And again, it's nowhere near like the top of the heap as far as like bass work goes in the 80s either. So the singing is okay. I like the way they're recorded, the layering and the harmonies and stuff, but I don't think the vocals, like the leads, are very strong either. It's more just like establishing mood and kind of a feel and a new sound, which I think they do, but I don't really find any of the things they're doing that interesting.
Well, so far it sounds like I enjoy this more than you. I almost was about to get to our scores, but we got to do best track, worst track. Best track for me is She Bangs the Drums. Love the bass line. Guitar Hero song, so it sticks with me from then. And least favorites, man, I don't know. That's tough. Elizabeth, my dear. I'm not sure. 53 second.
53 shot, second shot at Queen Elizabeth. My favorites, obviously, I Want to Be Adored. I think it's a pretty stone cold classic there. Worst song, probably Don't Stop. Just a little too faux Beatles, White Album, reverse, faux Indian vibes. Yeah, that's probably the worst.
I'm at 4.5 stars on this. And it's a real candidate for me for like a record that I would love to see remixed, like from the ground up, a la Tim from the Replacements. We got that new mix that I think helped it. I think if this record got that treatment, might be able to get it to 5 stars because I love the songs and I love the vibe of it. I just wish some of the sounds were a little better.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm only at 4 stars, which I mean, that's a fine score. It'd probably be in the top 50 for 1989, but this is an album that gets, lauds and ridiculously high placements. Perfect 10 from Pitchfork. It was in the top 500 for Rolling Stones, top 500 albums of all time. It was ranked number one by NME in 2000. 2006, they named it the best British album ever. And then in 2013, it landed on 7 on NME's greatest albums of all time list. So I don't quite get that. I think it's more to do with when and what it did, I guess, than the actual music itself. Because I think it's just a good album.
Yeah. Uh, no American thinks that, anyways. That's entirely the Brits.
Yeah, this is on you, Britain. Like I think you can do better. I think you can do better than the Stone Roses. Sorry.
I think they have, actually. All right, let us know what you think of this record. Drop it in the comments, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Again, check Patreon. It's in the video description if you want to vote on things like these classic album reviews. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.